The glare of the spotlights was blinding, but I was used to it by now. As I stepped onto the red carpet, camera flashes exploded around me like 1,000 tiny supernovas. I plastered on my $1,000,000 smile, the one that had graced countless magazine covers and movie posters. Eva Sinclair, America's sweetheart, the girl next door who'd made it big. If only they knew how lonely it was at the top. I glided down the carpet, my golden locks cascading over my shoulders in perfect waves. My stylist had outdone herself tonight. The sleek, midnight blue gown hugged my curves in all the right places, making me feel like a goddess. But even as I posed and waved, a familiar emptiness gnawed at my insides. That's when I saw her. In the sea of faces beyond the velvet ropes, one stood out. A brunette with striking green eyes that seemed to pierce right through me. Our gazes locked, and for a moment, the world around us faded away. My breath caught in my throat, and I felt a strange flutter in my chest. I forced myself to look away, to keep moving, but I couldn't shake the image of those eyes from my mind. As I made my way into the theater for the premiere, I found myself glancing back, searching for her face in the crowd. But she was gone, lost in the sea of adoring fans. The movie played, but I barely paid attention. My thoughts kept drifting back to the mysterious woman. Who was she? Why did she affect me so strongly? I'd never felt this way about anyone before, let alone another woman. It was thrilling and terrifying all at once. After the credits rolled and I'd fulfilled my obligations at the after-party, I retreated to the solitude of my hotel suite. I kicked off my heels and poured myself a glass of wine, trying to make sense of the emotions swirling inside me. As I stood by the window, looking out over the twinkling lights of Winston-Salem, I couldn't help but wonder if I'd ever see her again. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would change my life forever. I raised my glass to my reflection in the window, a wry smile playing on my lips. "Here's to you, mystery woman," I whispered. "Whoever you are, you've certainly made things interesting." Days passed, but I couldn't shake the memory of those mesmerizing green eyes. I tried to lose myself in work, but even on set, my mind wandered. Who was she? Would I ever see her again? Fate, it seemed, had other plans. I was huddled in a corner booth of my favorite cafe, hiding behind oversized sunglasses and a floppy hat, when I heard a familiar voice ordering at the counter. My heart skipped a beat as I peered over my cup. It was her. She turned, coffee in hand, and our eyes met. Recognition flickered across her face, and before I knew it, she was sliding into the seat across from me. "I'm Angela," she said, her voice warm and rich. "I hope you don't mind me joining you. I promise I'm not some crazy stalker." I laughed, surprising myself with how genuine it sounded. "Eva," I replied, though I'm sure she already knew. "And I don't mind at all." What started as a chance encounter turned into hours of conversation. Angela was witty, intelligent, and refreshingly down to earth. She worked as a graphic designer and had a passion for independent films. As we talked, I found myself opening up in a way I hadn't in years. Over the next few weeks, Angela and I began spending more time together. We'd meet for coffee, take walks in the park, or just hang out at my place watching old movies. I told myself it was just a friendship, but deep down, I knew it was something more. One night, we decided to have a private screening of my latest film at my penthouse. As we settled onto the couch, I was acutely aware of how close we were sitting. The lights dimmed, and the movie started, but I could barely focus on the screen. Halfway through, I reached for the popcorn at the same moment Angela did. Our hands brushed, and a jolt of electricity shot through me. We both froze, our fingers tangled together in the bowl. Slowly, I turned to look at her, my heart pounding. Angela's eyes were wide, her lips slightly parted. I could see the same desire I felt reflected in her gaze. For a moment, neither of us moved, caught in a silent dance of anticipation. Then, almost imperceptibly, she leaned in closer. My breath hitched as I felt the warmth of her body, smelled the subtle scent of her perfume. Every nerve in my body was on high alert, screaming for me to close the distance between us. But fear held me back. What if I was reading this all wrong? What if this ruined our friendship? What about my career? As if sensing my internal struggle, Angela slowly withdrew her hand, a flicker of disappointment crossing her face. The moment passed, and we both turned back to the movie, an unspoken tension hanging in the air between us. As the credits rolled, I couldn't help but wonder what might have happened if I'd been braver. Would she have kissed me? Would I have kissed her back? These questions haunted me long after Angela had gone home. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I realized I was standing on the edge of something life-changing. The question was, did I have the courage to take the leap? The tension between Angela and me was palpable after that night. We continued to see each other, but there was an undercurrent of electricity in every interaction. I found myself hyper-aware of her presence. Noticing little things I'd overlooked before, the way her eyes crinkled when she laughed, how she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous. One evening, I invited Angela over to my penthouse, ostensibly to discuss a fan project she was working on. As I opened the door, my breath caught in my throat. She stood there, bathed in the soft glow of the hallway lights, looking absolutely stunning in a simple black dress. "Come in," I managed, stepping aside to let her pass. As she brushed by me, I caught a whiff of her perfume and my heart raced. We settled on the couch, a respectable distance between us, and I poured us each a glass of wine. As we talked, I found myself getting lost in her eyes, barely registering the words coming out of her mouth. The wine loosened our inhibitions, and gradually we inched closer to each other. During a lull in the conversation, I noticed Angela staring at my lips. The air around us seemed to thicken, charged with unspoken desire. I licked my lips nervously, and her eyes darkened. "Ava," she whispered, her voice husky. Before she could finish, I closed the distance between us, pressing my lips to hers. For a moment she froze, and I feared I'd made a terrible mistake. But then she melted into the kiss, her hands coming up to tangle in my hair. The kiss was everything I'd imagined and more. Her lips were soft and warm, tasting faintly of wine and something uniquely Angela. As we deepened the kiss, a small moan escaped me, and I felt her smile against my lips. When we finally pulled apart, both breathless, I rested my forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that for so long," I admitted. Angela chuckled softly. "Me too," she replied, running her thumb across my cheek. We spent the rest of the night talking, kissing, and exploring this new dimension of our relationship. As the first light of dawn began to peek through the windows, we fell asleep in each other's arms, content and hopeful for what the future might bring. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of stolen moments and secret rendezvous. We were careful to keep our relationship under wraps, knowing the media would have a field day if they found out. But in private, we were free to express our love for each other. Each kiss, each touch, felt like a revelation. I marveled at the softness of Angela's skin, the curve of her hips, the way she gasped when I kissed that spot just below her ear. It was intoxicating, and I couldn't get enough. But as our relationship deepened, so did my fears. What would this mean for my career? How would my fans react? The entertainment industry wasn't always kind to those who didn't fit the mold, and I worried about the backlash we might face. Angela, sensing my inner turmoil, was endlessly patient and understanding. "We'll face it together," she'd say, squeezing my hand reassuringly. Her unwavering support gave me strength, but the nagging doubts remained. As I lay in bed one night, Angela sleeping peacefully beside me, I realized I was at a crossroads. I was happier than I'd ever been, but I knew that soon I'd have to make a choice between my love and my career. The thought terrified me, but as I looked at Angela's serene face, I knew that whatever happened, she was worth it. Little did I know, fate was about to force my hand in ways I never could have imagined. As our relationship blossomed in secret, Angela and I became experts at stealing moments together. Every shared glance, every brush of hands in public, felt like a delicious conspiracy. But it was never enough. We craved more time, more intimacy, more of each other. That's how we found ourselves at a secluded beach house for a weekend getaway. As I watched Angela unpack, the sunlight streaming through the windows kissed her skin, and I was struck by how beautiful she was. Not just physically, but in her essence, her kindness, her wit, her passion. "What?" she asked, catching me staring. I crossed the room and took her in my arms. "Just thinking about how lucky I am," I murmured, before capturing her lips in a tender kiss. The kiss deepened, and soon we were stumbling towards the bed, hands roaming, breath quickening. As I lowered Angela onto the soft sheets, I paused, drinking in the sight of her. Her chestnut hair fanned out on the pillow, her green eyes dark with desire. Slowly, reverently, I began to undress her. My fingers trembled as I unclasped her bra, revealing the soft swell of her breasts. The patterned, comfortable velvet undergarments she wore were a stark contrast to the silky lingerie I was used to seeing in my industry. Somehow, this made the moment even more intimate, more real. "You're gorgeous," I breathed, trailing kisses down her neck, across her collarbone, lower still. Angela arched into my touch, a soft moan escaping her lips. What followed was a dance of exploration and discovery. We took our time, mapping each other's bodies with fingers and lips, learning what made the other gasp and shiver with pleasure. It was tender, passionate, and more intense than anything I'd ever experienced. Afterwards, as we lay tangled in the sheets, our bodies still humming with residual pleasure, I felt a sense of completeness I'd never known before. This wasn't just physical attraction or infatuation, this was love, deep and true. "I love you, Angela," I whispered, the words slipping out before I could stop them. She propped herself up on an elbow, her eyes searching mine. For a heart-stopping moment, I feared I'd said too much, too soon. Then her face broke into a radiant smile. "I love you too, Eva," she replied, sealing the declaration with a kiss. The rest of the weekend passed in a blissful haze of lovemaking, long walks on the beach, and intimate conversations. We talked about our hopes, our fears, our dreams for the future. For the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a life where I could be open about who I was and who I loved. But as Sunday evening approached, reality began to creep back in. Tomorrow we'd return to Winston-Salem, to secrecy and stolen moments. The thought filled me with a mixture of dread and determination. "We can't keep hiding forever," Angela said softly as we packed our bags. "I know you're scared about your career, but—" "I know," I interrupted, taking her hands in mine. "You're right. I'm tired of living a lie. When we get back, I'll talk to my management team. We'll figure something out." Angela's eyes widened in surprise. "Are you sure? I don't want to pressure you." I silenced her with a kiss. "I'm sure. You're worth it. We're worth it." As we drove back to the city, hand in hand, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we'd face them together. Little did I know, fate had other plans. The decision to come out would soon be taken out of my hands in the most dramatic way possible, testing our love and resolve to its very limits. The bubble of bliss Angela and I had created burst spectacularly on a sunny Tuesday afternoon. I was leaving a lunch meeting when my phone exploded with notifications. Missed calls from my agent, my publicist, even my mother. What could possibly? Then I saw it. The headline screamed at me from my news feed, "America's Sweetheart and Secret Sapphic Affair." Beneath it, a grainy but unmistakable photo of Angela and me kissing on the balcony of the beach house. My stomach dropped. The world spun. This couldn't be happening. I barely remember the drive to my management team's office. The next few hours were a blur of raised voices, frantic phone calls, and damage control strategies. My agent Tom paced the room like a caged tiger. "We need to get ahead of this," he insisted. "Issue a statement. Say it was a misunderstanding, a joke between friends." I felt sick. "But it's not," I whispered. Tom's eyes softened for a moment. "Eva, honey, I know. But you have to think about your career, the image we've built." As they debated my future, my phone buzzed. A text from Angela, "Are you okay? I'm here if you need me." In that moment, something inside me snapped. I stood up, silencing the room. "No," I said firmly. "I won't lie. I won't hide anymore." The chaos that followed was intense. My team scrambled to pivot, to find a way to spin this that wouldn't destroy my career. In the end, we settled on a vague statement about privacy and personal growth, buying us time to strategize. But the media machine was relentless. Speculation ran wild. Old CO stars were hounded for comments. My social media was flooded with a mix of support and vitriol. Through it all, Angela was my rock, but I could see the toll it was taking on her. The paparazzi had found her too, camping outside her apartment, following her to work. "I'm so sorry," I told her one night as we huddled in my living room, curtains drawn. "You didn't sign up for this." She squeezed my hand. "Hey, we're in this together, remember?" But the pressure was mounting. My management team was pushing hard for damage control. They wanted me to be seen out and about with Jason, my handsome co-star from my last film. "Create doubt," they said. "Keep people guessing." I resisted at first, but as the days wore on and the scrutiny intensified, I began to waver. Maybe if I just played along for a little while, things would calm down. We could come out on our own terms later. It was a decision I'd come to regret deeply. The first date with Jason was innocent enough. A casual lunch at a popular cafe, knowing we'd be photographed. But the headlines the next day were brutal. Eva moves on from lesbian fling. I tried to explain to Angela to make her understand it was all for show. But I saw the hurt in her eyes, the doubt creeping in. I trust you, she said, but her voice was hollow. Things spiraled quickly after that. More staged outings with Jason, coy interviews where I neither confirmed nor denied the rumors. Each move designed to create confusion, to maintain my marketable image, and with each passing day, I felt Angela slipping further away. It all came to a head at a charity gala. I was there with Jason, playing my part. As we posed for photos, I caught sight of Angela across the room. Our eyes met, and the pain and betrayal I saw there shattered my heart. She turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. And I knew, with a sickening certainty, that I had made a terrible mistake. As the cameras flashed around me, I plastered on my fake smile, all the while feeling my world crumbling beneath my feet. I had chosen my career over love, and the cost was proving to be far higher than I ever imagined. The weeks following the gala were a blur of misery and regret. I tried reaching out to Angela, but my calls went straight to voicemail, my texts unanswered. The silence was deafening, and I knew I had no one to blame but myself. Meanwhile, my career was in freefall. Despite my management team's efforts, the controversy refused to die down. Some fans stood by me, but many felt betrayed by the perceived deception. Directors who had been clamoring to work with me suddenly became scarce. The golden girl image I'd cultivated for years was tarnishing rapidly. I threw myself into work, accepting a small role in an independent film shooting in Winston-Salem. It was a far cry from the blockbusters I was used to, but I was grateful for the distraction. On set, I could pretend to be someone else, someone whose life wasn't falling apart at the seams, but reality had a way of intruding. One evening, as I was leaving the set, I spotted a familiar figure waiting by my car. My heart leapt, then plummeted as I recognized not Angela, but her best friend Sophia. "She's a mess, you know," Sophia said without preamble. "You really did a number on her." I flinched at her words. I never meant to hurt her. I was trying to protect. "Your career?" Sophia cut in, her voice sharp. "Well, bang-up job there, Eva. You've lost her and your precious image. Hope it was worth it." As Sophia walked away, her words echoed in my head. She was right. In trying to please everyone, I'd ended up losing everything that truly mattered. That night, I made a decision. No more lies, no more hiding. It was time to take control of my narrative. I called my publicist and arranged an interview with a respected LGBTQ magazine. It was time to tell my truth. Consequences be damned. The day of the interview arrived, and as I poured my heart out to the journalist, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. I talked about my struggles with my sexuality, the pressure of maintaining a certain image, and yes, my relationship with Angela. I didn't hold back, owning up to my mistakes and expressing my deep regret for hurting the woman I loved. As the interview wrapped up, my phone buzzed with a news alert. My blood ran cold as I read the headline, "Scorned Lover Exposes Actress Eva Sinclair's Private Messages." With shaking hands, I opened the article. There, for all the world to see, were intimate conversations between Angela and me. Our declarations of love, our fears, our dreams, all laid bare for public consumption. I felt sick. This wasn't Angela. She would never do this, no matter how hurt she was. Something wasn't right. In a daze, I left the interview, my mind racing. I needed to find Angela, to understand what was happening. As luck would have it, we were both scheduled to attend a film festival event that evening. The atmosphere was tense as I entered the venue. I could feel the stares, hear the whispers, but I was focused on one thing, finding Angela. I spotted her across the room, looking pale and uncomfortable. Our eyes met, and for a moment, the world faded away. I started towards her, determined to clear the air. But before I could reach her, a hand grabbed my arm, spinning me around. It was Jason, my co-star from the fake dating scheme. "Eva, baby, there you are," he said loudly, clearly playing to the watching crowd. "I've been looking everywhere for you." I tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. "Jason, please, not now," I hissed. "Come on, Eva," he insisted, his smile not reaching his eyes. "Give the people what they want." Something in me snapped. Months of fear, guilt, and frustration boiled over. I wrenched my arm free and shoved him away. "No," I shouted. "I'm done pretending. I'm done living a lie." The room fell silent. All eyes were on us, including Angela's. In that moment, as our gazes locked across the crowded room, I knew what I had to do. It was time to fight for what really mattered. I took a step towards Angela, my heart pounding, but before I could reach her, chaos erupted. Someone, I couldn't see who, pushed past me roughly. There was a shout, a flash of movement, and then the sharp crack of a slap echoed through the stunned silence. The sting of the slap lingered on my cheek, but the emotional pain far outweighed the physical. Angela stood before me, her hands still raised, her eyes brimming with tears. The room around us was in chaos, but all I could see was her. "How could you?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "Those messages, our private moments." Realization dawned. "Angela, I didn't leak those messages. I would never—" "It wasn't her," a voice cut through the commotion. We turned to see Sophia, Angela's best friend, stepping forward. "It was me. I hacked Angela's phone and leaked the messages." The confession sent shockwaves through the room. Angela stumbled back, confusion and betrayal written across her face. "Sophia? But why?" Sophia's composure cracked. "Because I love you, Ange. I always have. I thought if I could break you two you up." As security escorted Sophia away, I turned back to Angela. The hurt in her eyes was palpable, but there was something else there too, a flicker of hope. "Eva," she said softly, "I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you." I took her hands in mine, ignoring the flashing cameras around us. "No, I'm the one who should be sorry. I was a coward. I chose my career over us, and it was the biggest mistake of my life." Taking a deep breath, I turned to face the crowd. The room was packed with industry bigwigs, journalists, and fellow actors. This was it, the moment of truth. "I have something to say," I announced, my voice carrying across the now silent room. "For years I've lived a lie, hiding who I truly am out of fear. But I'm done being afraid." I squeezed Angela's hand, drawing strength from her presence. "I'm a lesbian, and I'm in love with this amazing woman. I don't care if it costs me my career. Nothing is worth losing her." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, from somewhere in the back, a single person started clapping. Soon, others joined in. The applause grew, filling the room with a thunderous roar of support. Tears streamed down my face as I turned back to Angela. "I love you," I said. "Can you ever forgive me?" In response, she pulled me close and kissed me. Right there, in front of everyone. It was a kiss of forgiveness, of promise, of love. As we broke apart, breathless and giddy, I noticed my agent Tom approaching. I braced myself for the worst. "Eva," he said, his expression unreadable. That was quite a statement. I stood tall, my arm around Angela. I meant every word. To my surprise, a slow smile spread across Tom's face. It was brilliant, authentic, brave. The public's going to eat it up. I've already got calls coming in for interviews, LGBTQ advocacy campaigns. I laughed in disbelief. "So, you're saying—" "I'm saying your career's far from over, kid. It's just taking a new direction." In the weeks that followed, life was a whirlwind. The response to my coming out was overwhelmingly positive. Sure, there were some negative reactions, but they were drowned out by the outpouring of support. Angela and I moved in together, no longer hiding our love. I threw myself into LGBTQ activism, using my platform to advocate for acceptance and equality, and to my surprise, my career flourished. Directors sought me out for complex, challenging roles I never would have been offered before. 1 year later, as Angela and I stood hand in hand on another red carpet, this time for a film where I played a queer character, I marveled at how much had changed. The fear that had once consumed me was gone, replaced by a deep sense of peace and authenticity. As we posed for photos, a reporter called out, "Eva, are you happy with how things turned out?" I looked at Angela, saw the love shining in her eyes, and smiled. "Happier than I ever thought possible," I replied. "This is who I am, and I wouldn't change it for the world." With that, I pulled Angela close and kissed her. Cameras be damned. Because in the end, love won. And that was the greatest plot twist of all.